Looks like everybody's wide awake today.
I think everybody's very wide awake.
Not me.
All right, can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Can someone say something? Because I don't know if I can hear.
Yeah, can you hear this?
I cannot hear stuff.
Uh-oh.
It's not great.
There's 4 made this weekend.
Oh, at Innovation Campus, you mean?
No, over at Lycor.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The 3D printed ones?
Yeah,
Nice. Cool.
yeah. Might have to kind of doctor them up. Maybe some of the team can get some ideas on, how we might glue on maybe some solar panels, make it look a little bit more realistic. But it's
We probably, given the right color filament, we could probably make like realistic looking plastic ones too, like solar panels.
True.
yeah,
Or another thing we could do. I don't know if we still have these in the AXP lab, but we have like these they're non-functional, but they're solar panels. I don't know where they came from. We can maybe glue those on.
We do still have those. We have a lot of those actually.
Where'd those come from? There was like a USIP project, right?
I don't know what they were. I found them when MJ and I were cleaning out the closet, and she told me that you guys broke them. So that's all I know about them.
All
I
right,
wouldn't
I
say-
can hear now. What are you guys talking about?
You know these little plastic solar panels, Joel, that we found last year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are from the USIP and then RockSatX project with the extending boom that lasted 2 different things.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think we broke them.
Good.
All right. Well, sorry about those technical difficulties. Now I can hear you guys, and apparently you guys could hear me the entire time.
We can hear you. You can hear us.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's fine in some cases, but all right. We can go ahead and get started here. Just to go over today, a pretty standard day. We're going to start off with an icebreaker, go into breakout rooms to discuss PDR feedback, as well as the build days. And specifically for those build days, we're going to work on planning out what our objectives are for each of those specific days we're going to be there. So we make sure that we're meeting those deadlines and don't end up getting behind by accident, as these projects tend to go. And then we're going to have a little bit of a break, and then kind of to finish things off, we're going to have some public speaking activities, as well as talking about what we're going to be doing next Saturday. And I'll save that teaser for then. But our icebreaker for today is birds versus bats. I did not come up with this question, but we're supposed to consider their merit as pets as well as their strengths in battle.
A
Can I ask
weird
a question
icebreaker.
before we continue?
Any initial thoughts?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Joel, you said you didn't come up with this. Did John come up with this?
I think I came up with this on like Wednesday when I was, like after a very long day of classes and stuff.
Yeah.
I heard a new question of, is cereal a soup?
Ooh, that's a better one. That's a much better one.
I guess that brings the question, what is a soup? Any
Chunks, liquid is soup.
Keegan, you look like you have something you want to say.
I guess, yeah. So technically, in order for it to be classified as a soup, it has to have some sort of broth in it. And milk isn't technically a broth because it's not water with a vegetable or meat. So technically, in the culinary world, it should not be considered a soup, from what I understand.
So you say that that it has to be like from vegetable or meat, but like, could milk be classified as meat?
No. No, it can. I suppose if you put something in milk, it has like some sort of water content in it. So I guess if you really wanted to, if you added something to the milk itself and then steamed that, then technically you could get some sort of weird, probably not edible broth.
Okay.
I think it would be edible. You just wouldn't want to eat it.
They're cream soups, you know. Or like oyster stew, milk is the broth.
But isn't a cream different than a broth though? Because creams are a little bit thicker.
They can be, but like oyster stew is milk is the broth.
Well,
It's disgusting, but my mom insists on it on Christmas Eve because she's German.
I guess I don't know, because I feel like stews are different than soups. So are we arguing that it's a stew or a soup? I guess is the real question.
That's a good question.
More of a soup because I think stews are usually thicker.
Yeah. Because I took culinary foundations like 2 years ago, and they told us that it has to have some sort of some sort of solid food in it atypically, and then it has to have some sort of broth. Because if it doesn't have anything in it, then it's just broth. But broth, tomato soup is broth essentially.
Yeah, but like it's not, I don't know. Like there's nothing else in it though. I thought it had to have like multiple components, or like is just broth kind of soup?
Well, I guess it depends on who you ask, but there's like different kinds of soup, I suppose. But I don't really remember them that well. All I know is that I remember there's typically 2 components to a soup, and one is some sort of like texture form to it, and the other one is a broth. So I guess if you have a separate broth and then the tomato, I don't know how tomato soup is made. So if there's like tomatoes and then a broth and then they're mixed together, then it would be yes, a soup. But
Okay.
I guess broth itself could be a soup. Like people make. Okay. I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah, think there's a lot.
Robert said that he feels that we've had this before. I feel like we have had this before.
We
I
had
do
this
feel like
conversation
we've had this
before.
exact conversation before.
Yeah.
I thought it was with hot dogs and stuff. Yeah.
Because it was after we talked about whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich, which then led to most people talking about whether or not a cereal is a soup. So we didn't directly ask this question before, but we did ask if a hot dog was a sandwich, which led to cereal as a soup.
That's fair.
Okay.
It's popcorn corn.
Yes.
is it,
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
Yeah.
It is popcorn corn. Of course it's corn. It's in a different form, but it's still corn, John.
No, that's what Gavin asked.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Awesome.
But is candy corn corn?
No, absolutely not.
Candy corn is candy.
Candy corn is barely candy. Candy corn is actually no. I shouldn't be knocking candy corn. It's not terrible.
But it's no. But, and soup is not a cereal because a cereal is just when you buy a box of cereal, it doesn't come with milk. You just get the cereal, right? It's the little grain pieces or whatever it's made out of. That's the cereal, not the water. Because you can eat cereal without milk.
You can.
I eat it without milk.
That's-
all the time.
I eat my cereal without milk, so I don't. That can't be soup.
Just dry soup. chunks.
Also,
It was oatmeal
I-
Okay, what about yeah, oatmeal's a good one. What about spoiled milk where it has like the little chunks in it? Like
If you boil it, it becomes a soup.
It's yogurt.
it becomes no
yogurt, yeah.
becomes disgusting.
Yeah.
Well, if you simmer it, it's technically a soup according to Google.
What is?
Hmm?
Can you repeat the first part of that? I didn't hear.
Yeah, let me go find what somebody sent something into the chat where it was like Google says, okay, soup is a liquid food made by boiling or simmering meat, fish, or vegetables with various added ingredients. So if you take your rotted milk and you put meat, fish, or vegetables into it, and then you simmer it, according to the definition of soup, that becomes a soup.
Okay.
Not
Why
saying you
is-
should.
Question, why is meat classified differently from fish there? Is fish not a type of meat?
I think they're structurally kind of different.
How
Well,
so?
some vegetarians actually, they're actually pescatarians. They'll eat fish, but no other form of meat.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I guess I'm just kind of curious as to why, because like it's still like the muscle of an animal. Like,
Well, I guess if not, well, it's not always just the muscle because you have like fish heads and other things like that, but I'm assuming it's probably because they're cooked differently. And fish and other seafood can give you food poisoning if you don't cook it at the right temperature. So there's different ways of cooking it, which is why I would assume. But then that would mean that poultry would also have to be classified separately.
According to Google, fish is not meat because it's cold-blooded.
okay,
Sorry.
like snake meat wouldn't be meat either.
What about like gazpacho soup, which you don't boil or simmer? You make with tomatoes and other seasonings.
That's salsa,
That's thin salsa.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Is chili a soup or is chili chili?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, there are a lot of different thicknesses of chili, you know?
It's no, because there's different there's like the sauce family, and I think chili would be a part of that, like salsa, because it's like part of the sauce family, the sauce tree.
Chili has meat in it, so
Even fish.
I don't think I've ever heard of fish chili.
Oh, you haven't been to Mexico.
Mm.
Not.
Matter of fact, you don't know what's in the chili.
It sounds like a fun guessing game.
Yeah.
If it has a broth and there's another thing in it, then it's soup. Nobody eats, because cereal itself is just the bag of like cereal. Like you can eat cereal without milk, you can eat cereal with broth. Why you would want to do that is beyond me. But then it would be a soup, yes, because it's not, cereal itself is just a bag of like grain that is formed into some shape and tastes like sugar.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, corn, chicken broth and Cheerios does not sound good.
That's not.
Why?
Do we think we've exhausted the conversation about soup and
I'm
hot
hu-
dogs?
I'm hungry.
Okay, I can
Oh,
understand
speaking
that.
of hot dogs.
All right. Ooh, looks like Gavin has a paragraph about birds and bats. All right. Maybe we can read that as we're transitioning to the next slide. So we had our PDR last week, and I believe the plan is to break out into breakout rooms in just a second, after we also talk about the build days, and then we're going to talk about kind of the individual payloads feedback for the PDR, as well as in those breakout rooms talk about how it went overall and kind of go from there. All right. Yep, so we're going to go from there. For the build day schedule and budget, that's our main objectives for today while we're in the breakout rooms, besides going over the PDR comments to that too. We have a nice spreadsheet that's going to lay out the schedule for all the different teams, as well as if there's something that we need to do as like an entire Big Red Satellite group, like go over the orientation at Innovation Campus, or have a soldering workshop, or a workshop with a little bit of how to use an Arduino and interact with some of those sensors. All that is going to be on there so that you guys can see it all. It's laid out in a nice table that way. So we're going to try and work on that when we're in breakout rooms. And while we are setting goals, something that's very important to keep in mind while we're setting these goals we're setting, we want them to be specific. And then we also want to have sort of like an exit criteria for these goals. So while you're in your payload teams, what is it that needs to happen in order to make this goal be marked as done or complete? So I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but we can go over those in a second. And for the budget as well, we want that to be as specific and as detailed as possible. And I do have Payload Pi started on a budget, but we can always add more detail as well. I know what my screen is kind of zoomed out, so. All right, can you guys see this all right? All right, so as you can see here, Payload Pi has done a great job of laying things out as the item, the manufacturer, the price, the quantity, and they have price listed twice. And then they also have a link to the product, which is very useful. And although,
Just the price listed twice, it's in case you get more than one.
Yeah.
okay, like the total price there,
Right, so it's a multiplier.
that makes sense. I didn't get that. It's like Streamer Vision, if you guys have heard of that. I don't know. But this is almost everything, but something that we're going to want to make sure to include for the end is the styrofoam container, as well as the heating system for your payload. And that might vary slightly from payload to payload. We just want to make sure that we have all of that information in there. And something else specifically I can comment on is batteries. We want to make sure that we have those in there as well. All right. Now, I know I covered some of the stuff. Is there anything that I'm forgetting, Michael or John, before we break out into breakout rooms?
Do we want to just like talk about the schedules for the build days, like how long
Yes.
everyone's going to be there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a couple things. We have this document that we have sent out. Right now it's in file sharing. And sometime today, we're going to send an email to all of you guys, as well as your parents, to hopefully give them this information as well. But it kind of just walks us through all of the information that we will need for the build days. The most important thing to go over just in the meeting here is that the purpose of the build days, all of our 3 payload teams are collaborating with AXP, the undergraduate group, Saturdays from March 13th through April 17th. And you guys will be learning lots of things like soldering, programming, building your payloads, 3D printing some stuff. And then hopefully by the end of that, the payloads are all together. And then we're able to launch on April 24th. And it kind of just gives a rundown on COVID policies, where it's taking place with some addresses and some pictures there. And then for the dates and times, this is another important thing for you guys to see. Right now, we don't know, or we know that people can be busy on Saturdays, so we don't want to take up their entire day, but we want to have enough time to make sure that we can get everything done. So we have 3 different time slots for every Saturday, 10 to noon, noon to 2 p.m., and 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And if you guys can just mark off your availability for those 3 times, we don't know exactly how this build process is going to go. Hopefully you guys don't have to stay there like all 3 times every Saturday. That's not the plan. But there might be some weeks where you guys might want to, or it'd be good for you guys to stay for 2 of those, blocks of time. Yeah, and there's just little check boxes for you guys to fill that out there. And then there's also, we have a couple different waivers that we need you guys to sign. I believe they're both like image release forms for Innovation Campus.
Joel, what happens if like say 3 or 4 of the members can be there like at a certain time and then like maybe 1 or 2 people can't?
Yeah, so that might be something that the team has to work out. But hopefully we're able to divide work up into those different time slots and have AXP mentors there that are able to help. Even if some of you guys aren't able to be there the entire time, the AXP mentors will be able to kind of guide you guys from your work from one session to the next session and that Saturday if people aren't able to make it.
Right.
And hopefully the schedule that you guys are working on today also helps organize that. All right. Anything else you should cover or go over again? Does anyone have any questions?
What if a parent is coming with the team member? Do you want to know that?
Absolutely. We have a little sentence in here about the Mill Coffee Shop. I'll go up to this picture here. So Nebraska Innovation Studio right here is where all of the building is going to take place, and that's where people are going to be most of the time. But in the Innovation Commons, there's this nice little coffee shop right here. It's called the Mill, which has just some open seating, and you guys can get some food there, some coffee, some, something to drink there as well, in case parents want to stay and maybe get some work done, read a book, or just watch over you guys and all the good work that you guys are going to be doing.
That's another question I have. Are parents going to be allowed to like actually see some of the work going on?
I believe so, yeah. They'll be able to, they might not be able to stay in Innovation Studio where the work's being done the entire time, but they should be able to at least come take peeks every now and then.
What about food? Like, should people bring their own food?
Depending on when people are signed up to come, that could be good, but there is the Mill right here, which does have food options in that case. And depending on, which times we think are best for people to come work on things, we might be sending out more information on that as well.
Sounds good.
All right. So we should be sending this out today. And if you guys are able to get this piece filled out right here of when you guys think you can make it, as well as these 2 waivers attached to the end, if you guys can send that to the Nebraska CubeSat team Gmail right here, it's on this sheet, and we'll be sending that in the email as well. If you guys can get that done before next Saturday, that'd be great. Even before then would help us plan things out. But we'll be sending out plenty of reminders for that. All right.
Should anybody tell you beforehand they won't be able to make it?
Absolutely. So we might have to make certain accommodations for like a certain number of people being there, or depending on the times of things, we might have to provide food or want to provide food. So if you guys say you can make it during a certain time and then something comes up, letting us know as soon as possible would definitely help us on our side.
For the parents as well as the team, can you put the Innovation Studio link on the, I couldn't see it that quickly. So is it on there so they can look at it? Oh, cool. I missed it.
Oh no, I scrolled past it really quick. So, all right. Is there anything else anyone can think of that we should go over one more time, or any questions before we move on? All right. If you guys have any more questions later on in the meeting, feel free to ask them. But that sheet will also be sent out on email later today. So just a brief look at the schedule here. I believe this is sent in the file sharing channel. Just to make sure. Yep, that's that schedule. But does this make sense to everyone? We have a payload 1, payload 2, and payload 3. And if you guys want to change your names there, feel free to. But this just has each build day along here. And at the top, there's like big title names for each of these days to kind of guide you guys within your planning. But that's by no means something that you guys have to stick to. All right. So does that sound good to everyone?
Yep.
Okay. Now, if we want to go into breakout rooms and talk about both the PDR comments, work on the budget a little bit, as well as the schedule.
Sounds good.
All right.
Karen, I know this might be a good question for you, since I know you've probably done a lot of breakout rooms on Zoom as a professor before, but is there a way to save breakout rooms?
Yeah. Actually, there's a way where you can create the breakout rooms and load them up in advance. And if it's a repeating meeting, it just will populate them. So I'll look for that in the instructions and email it to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that'd be useful.
One thing I wanted to raise, we should have what is considered a flight review, probably the beginning of April, to go over the operational details, just to make sure we thought of everything. I think, just to make sure that wind patterns, et cetera, there's a checklist, a flight checklist. Every pilot does that. And I've asked if we could get the museum involved as well with that. So again, we have all the details sort of worked out 2-3 weeks ahead of time. I like to invite General Henson to that. He's sat through a number of flight reviews, so it'd be interesting to get his input and his questions. So if you want to think about that, we should have as many people that can just participate in that, make sure all the details are thought through.
Sounds good.
So if you don't mind, I'll pick a day and then we can look at the schedules and see if everybody can make it. We'll try to do it so it's common for everybody.
Right now on our schedules, we have April 3rd for each of the payload teams to have their launch checklist done. So the individual payloads wise, like running through power on, this needs to be working, this needs to be working, and then their payloads go. Do you want that on that same day or maybe the next Saturday on the 10th? Would that work?
Whatever you guys think, the more time just in case we forgot something, right? Or plan A or plan B, what happens if it does rain? What happens if it is, 30-mile-an-hour gusts? What would we do? Just things like that are always good to think through. So whichever you prefer, you guys pick the day and I'll see if he's available amongst some others.
All right.
I was going to try to see if Clay Anderson was available at some point as well. I have a call into him on something else.
All right. I guess tentatively the 3rd or the 10th, but if we have any more information on which day we'd prefer, we'll get that to you.
Okay.
All right. But John, Michael, and I, do we want to hop into the breakout rooms and?
Yeah. Can you assign me to ones? I can't see them until I'm actually in them.
Yeah.
All right, guys, how goes it?
Fine.
Have you guys made any progress? The schedule or budget?
We did not say anything.
All right. Well, do you guys all have access to a device that can open up Excel through Slack or Google Sheets?
Yeah.
Tegan, I see you're saying something, but I believe you muted there.
Yeah, I am. I believe I do.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, within file sharing, there's both the PDF, just a description of the build day, and also just a link to the schedule. Do you guys want to hop on that schedule?
Okay, there's a slight problem, I'm just gonna say. I have work at 2 o'clock at McDonald's and I have to eat lunch before the work. Every Saturday.
Yeah, that's okay. So just make sure when you're filling out the sheet to get back to us, that you only mark that you can make it to the 10 to 12 session, and we can work around that. Yeah. But yeah, you guys aren't like required to make it to all 3 sessions, just as many as you can and as much as is needed.
Yeah. Do you know if they'll always be on Saturdays in the future?
They don't have to be on Saturdays. The main thing is that's just a time that works. That's what we originally started meeting on, and we've just kept meeting on Saturdays. But especially when we're getting started, you guys will actually be able to take home like a little microcontroller, as well as maybe a couple sensors to get them working, and then go from there. Well, so we have both the schedule and then the build day, or not schedule, the schedule and the budget to go over. And I believe Caleb, you worked on the budget for the PDR, right?
I worked on the schedule.
Okay. Was it Tegan? Did you do the budget then?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, okay. We can do that in a second after we do a little work on the schedule then. All right. Do you guys have the schedule spreadsheet open?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Awesome. So for that first build day, we don't have to super follow like 10 to 12, 12 to 2, 2 to 4 as it's laid out above, but just if there's something that we want to work on first, second, and then third in that order. So if you guys can see like at the top, like the theme of the day that's suggested, we have an orientation starting with sensor testing and starting 3D models that need to be printed. So is there any way that you guys can break down that work? Any ideas?
I've done some 3D modeling before, and then it was like a year ago, I think. I made something. I 3D printed something. I forgot what it was.
I've won a couple SketchUp competitions. They were like in school though, so I don't know how like impressive that is, but
Certainly, yeah. Do you have SketchUp on a device that you could bring?
it's a school owned thing. It's like $400. It's so expensive.
They have free SketchUp too.
Yeah, but those kind of suck in my opinion. So
It's like the same thing. You just can't like export to flat drawings. I don't know. If you wanted, one of you wanted to take the lead on that, that'd be great. We just might be bogged down on devices to actually make those models on. But yeah. What about for the sensors? Do you guys want to like break down the work for individual sensors that you have to work with? Maybe. All right. Well, what sensors do you guys have that you'll need to communicate with?
Radiation, temperature, and altitude.
All right. So I just listed those three out so far. And especially when working with things at the beginning of a project, it's good to have like a proof of concept moment with like a sensor, so you get it working like just by itself, and then later once you have it working just by itself, you can go ahead and integrate it with other sensors in the entire system. So it makes sense to have like a goal for that day to have like a proof of concept with each of those sensors. Okay. So I'm just going to do POC, radiation sensor, temperature sensor, and altitude sensor. Does that make sense to you guys? All right, and we can get this, we might be able to get this printed out like on a big sheet of paper, and then like put names on certain things to be worked on, and then cross things off and add things as we go. All right. And then for the 3D modeling, what sorts of 3D modeling do we need to do? Like what's, any idea on how to break down like the big concept of 3D modeling for our payload?
Well, what parts do we need to 3D print? Like how many parts do we have that we need to print?
It's a good question. Something that you guys definitely need to do is create mounting or ways to mount all of your sensors. That's a big one. So one thing that we have ordered and on the way here is like a giant box of these little machine screws that are really useful for attaching like sensors and things to 3D prints. And so you guys will basically be able to like create a hole for a screw and then, you know, screw your sensors in there if you get the measurements right.
Yeah.
So would you guys want like creating mounting or like ways to mount each of the sensors?
Yeah.
All right. Definitely spelled mount right. What about like, what else do you guys need to design in the 3D models to print it out?
So we were thinking like with our design, we have the styrofoam on the outside, but we wanted to kind of make a thing we could just like put in it. So we didn't have to like build it in the styrofoam. We could just slide it in on its like in its own little thing. Would we have to 3D print that, or can we get something like that?
It'd probably be best to 3D print that.
Yeah.
So what do you want to call that? Or what type of goal would you make? Hmm. Yes. Do you want to say like maybe design tiered structure or like what would
Yeah.
you call that?
I know something.
Like platforms?
Yeah.
What about Andrew, Caleb, and Katie? Do you have any ideas what to call that?
Not really. I'm sorry. I'm not feeling very good.
I can understand that. I have my caffeine with me for a reason.
I already finished my morning caffeine.
Of course. What
I
about
have literally no idea.
Tegan? Do you have any ideas? Like, what would you call that? Like a platform structure or a tiered structure?
Inner shell? I really don't know.
Shelves? That makes sense too.
I guess shelves would probably be a good one, but I feel like a platform structure might be better just because I feel like shelves implies that it's lifted off the ground, right?
Yeah.
And so some of them are, but not all of them are, right? Because then we had that discussion on the
A wedding cake.
Wedding cake.
Like yeah, I get what you mean there, Andrew.
Every time I think of this, there's this book I like, and they have a palace that's has like tiers, and that's all I think of.
Mhm.
It's not helping me think of any names.
Do we just want to call it like a tiered 3D model
Yeah, that's fine.
or the
We'll probably
wedding?
come up with a better name eventually.
I kind of like Andrew's, like wedding cake tiers.
It could be our code name for it. No one will know what we're actually talking about.
Office block. I don't understand that one as much. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear it right now, but I have my 3D printer over here printing off models for AXP because we have some testing we're trying to do tomorrow. But if you guys get 3D models done on one of those Saturdays, I can go ahead and print it, and then like maybe during the week we can have a review session where we talk about what's good, what's bad about it, and then redesign it and have it printed for the next Saturday as well.
Yeah, I think I've also done soldering before.
Very nice.
It was like I think it was a camp that was run by UNL, and then we did that. We were making some kind of circuit board. I don't know, but I remember doing it.
Yeah, you guys will get to make these little lie detector boards.
That's what we did. We did those.
Yeah, that'll be, I think on this either the second or the third build day. You guys will all get your little lie detector boards and get to solder those, and then you'll get to solder all your components to go on your payload as well.
Yeah, I have no idea where it went. I had it for like a year and then it disappeared.
Yeah, well, we have advanced lie detectors, or they're not lie detectors, they're these little like timer things that a bunch of the undergraduates are working on today, and I get to lead that workshop.
That's cool.
I'm very excited for it. All right, well, so we have, for the 3D prints, we need to have, we're creating 3D models to mount all the sensors, and then the wedding cake tiered 3D print, and maybe eventually, once we have each of those models by themselves, you guys can combine them together.
Yeah.
And then you'll have in the structure places to mount all of them. So maybe that could be a goal for the second Saturday.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that you guys can think of that you need to do for these payloads, or like testing or anything? Is there any sort of like coding or anything that you'll need to do?
Well, did we decide if we were gonna like continuously send our data or if we were just gonna have it collect it and then we get it when it comes back to the ground?
Yeah, the sending data thing is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking of it as sending, it'll probably be thinking of it as like saving it.
Yeah, just collecting it and we get it when we find it.
hmm
Okay, so that'll be, so we won't have to program that, the sending part.
Well, yeah, you'll have to program the saving part though,
Well,
which is
saving, but not the sending, yeah.
saving is actually like quite difficult to do because I don't know, it can be chaotic there. But would another like checkpoint be good to figuring out like how to save data?
Yeah.
All right, and then what about mm, so if you guys are, do you guys know what soldering is? Do all of you know what soldering is?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so basically, when you guys first get your sensors together, you're gonna want to prototype them on a breadboard like this. That's what it's called, a breadboard, which lets you really easily, take things in and out. There's all these holes, and then there's, as you go down here, all of these holes are connected electronically. And so, like, if you connect this button here, if you connect where it's in the breadboard to the end of this resistor, if I can actually do that, then that resistor and then the button are connected. And we can go over this more once we're in person because it's kind of hard to see over Zoom. That's really good for prototyping because it's really easy to take in and out, but it's very loose and unstable. So when you put it into like something to go into space, you're gonna want to make sure and you solder the connections together. So you like put wires together, and we're actually gonna melt a little bit of metal to make it one like really solid connection. And Tegan looks scared. It's not too difficult. Like you guys have to be careful because you can burn yourself, but like if you're careful, you don't burn yourself ever. But
Yeah, I didn't burn myself when I did it.
Yeah. If you do dumb things though, like me, you might end up burning yourself. So beware.
Just don't be careful.
Do we each have to do it? Because if I don't have to do it, I would really rather not.
Yeah. So there's like the lie detector that Elsa was talking about, or that's actually something all of you guys are going to be able to do. There's these little kits that you can put together, so you get plenty of practice before you go on to something where it matters more. But we
You
also
just have to hold it and then you take your little stick of really meltable metal and you just touch them together. You don't have to actually get near the hot thing. That might be
Okay,
bad near it.
I'm someone who has successfully burnt themselves with a hot glue gun every single time I have used one. I burned myself with a hot glue gun so bad you could see the nerve ending in my finger last year. No. This is
How in the world?
This fire is something that I feel comfortable.
That is kind of impressive, Tegan. We'll make sure that you don't burn yourself. We even there's like gloves and stuff that you can use just to make sure.
Oh, that's comforting then. Never mind. I think I'll just no. I'm probably I can see it going very badly. Just fire, not my thing.
All right. Something else that we need to make sure and do is like combining your code, right? Because we'll have code written individually for that proof of concept for each of those sensors. And then we also talked about saving data. And then we need to actually combine that, right? And I guess, so the soldering stuff, that's very permanent. And once you solder something like once, it's kind of difficult to unsolder it or desolder it. It's actually incredibly painful. I've had to do a lot of that recently. And we don't want you guys to have to do that. So something that's can be good to do, you guys don't have to like fully complete it, but it can save you a lot of time in the end, is making this big diagram of where all the wires need to connect to each other before you actually solder them.
Yeah.
And you
That's a
guys
good
can
idea.
actually like test that on a breadboard, and then you draw your thing, and then like if there's anything wrong, change it then. Highly recommend. So that like that'd be drawing up like a wiring diagram. Is that something that you guys would want to do too?
Yeah, that was probably a good idea.
All right. And then the actual soldering, your soldering workshop is planned for the 3rd day. And then when it comes to actually like combining like your payload and making all your solder joints and stuff, do you guys want that after that, before that? Any thoughts? All right. Yeah. Is there any other sensor or piece of the payload that we're forgetting? 'Cause I can think of something kind of major.
Which ones have we talked about already?
We've talked about the radiation sensor, the temperature sensor, and the altitude sensor.
We're forgetting about the camera. So we'll need to do something about that. With the Raspberry Pi.
So what should your goal be there with the Raspberry Pi? And when do you want that goal to be made?
Well, it should probably be.
Are you looking at the schedule now, Elsa?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, because there's a lot on this first day here.
Yeah, it should probably be on the 2nd day. That way we can leave the 3rd day kind of open for anything that we don't get done on the 1st or 2nd day.
So like, is right here where I put it, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just somewhere in there. And that might actually be something that you guys can take home, that the camera and the Raspberry Pi, and then at home try and get that working. But also with that, we have code that works that you guys could use.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right. So for the 3D models there too, if you look at like the top themes for the build day, the third build day is a dry fit of all the sensors and all the 3D printed parts.
Mhm.
So, like, do you guys know what a dry fit is in this case?
Not really.
Yeah. So, like, a dry fit in this case would mean, you know, you put everything together. Like, maybe you don't have any of the wiring done, but you put all your sensors. Maybe you put some marshmallows, just everything that you would have in the payload together in one piece, and then maybe put it in the actual styrofoam container. And
Yeah,
then
to
you look
make
at
sure it
it.
all fits.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like people call it like a dry run sometimes or dry fit. Would you guys want to have one of those, or what day would you want it on?
Uh, Probably what we'd have to see what we get done. Because I mean, if they're not all done, we can't do it.
Right. Well, specifically, you have these 3D printing goals that on day 1 and 2.
Mhm.
Do you think you'll be able to get all that done before the third day, or do you want to push that back and say third day is catch-up day?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Third day, catch-up day.
So like catch up on 3D models. And then when you want your dry fit on the 4th day.
Yeah, that makes the most sense.
All right. And up at the top here for the 4th day, there's the first integration test. There's not a lot of expectation for the first integration test, but something that we are going to try and have every team do is have everything put together in like a dry fit way, but then we're going to add all of the payload teams in there and have that ready to just make sure there's no weight issues, like it's tipping a ton, just to have that day to put absolutely everything together, even if it's not done,
Yeah,
just to find out what we're doing wrong then, so we have
so we
time to
can
correct
fix it. Yeah.
exactly. All right, and with that as well, the integration test, there's also something that we like to have called a launch checklist, which it's like a checklist that you go over when you launch. That's definitely something that we're gonna ask you guys to come up with. So like have maybe make sure that the Raspberry Pi is working, make sure that your sensors are getting data, and then like make sure that your marshmallows are in place, that everything is sealed up, and then you're ready to launch with just like a logical thing to go through to make sure that you're ready for launch on that day.
Yeah.
What day do you guys think you can have that done by? Yeah, probably doesn't take so long, but it would be good to maybe start it early and then work on it slowly over time.
Like the third or fourth day, probably the fourth day.
I like that. Do you also want to add that, or does someone else want to add that?
Yeah, I can. What should I write?
I would call it like a launch day checklist. Yeah, for your individual payload, it'd probably be a launch day checklist. But also for the overall like entire flight, something that you guys probably won't have to worry about too much, but the AXP team is going to have to worry about a lot, is a flight checklist. So that's not so much working on the payloads or like thinking about the payloads, maybe on there we have to individually go through and say like, payload 1, do we have confirmation you're ready to go? And then you guys will give us your confirmation or not. And then if it's not, we'll wait until you guys get your confirmation. And we'll go to payload 2. Are you confirmed to go? Payload 3, are you confirmed to go? And we'll go through all the payloads to make sure that each of the payloads are ready to go. And then we'll have to go through our own checklist, like, is the balloon tethered to the ground? Is the the structure tethered? And then we'll fill it up. We'll hold it, make sure everything's going right. And then finally, after like tons of random checks, things you wouldn't think of, random weather and wind patterns and prediction models for when it's gonna land, then we'll be good. And it's a pain. Very important. I guess I'll get off my soapbox there, but yeah. So I guess when do you guys think you can have all of the code done by? Because right now we have a pretty ambitious schedule from what I'm looking at, which isn't a bad thing. Very good usually. Of you guys first doing the proof of concepts for the radiation sensors, the altitude sensors, and the temperature sensors on the first day. And then on the second day, trying to take pictures of the camera and figuring out how to save data. And maybe start trying to combine some of that sensor code. And on the third day is kind of a catch-up day, trying to, complete any unfinished goals, and then specifically work on combining code. Do you think you guys will need another day, that fourth day, to finish combining code? Or
That's probably a good idea.
Okay.
I mean, we already have a lot to do the first, second, and third day.
Absolutely. But yeah, then you guys can finish combining code on the fourth day, try and do a dry fit of some parts, and work on that launch day checklist on the fourth day.
Yeah.
Now, on the fifth day, what do you guys think you should be working on then?
Well, I guess we could change this.
All right, and I guess what about power systems? That's something that AXP has kind of figured out.
Yeah.
But you guys probably want to do the construction of that, which will be a bit of soldering, and probably we'll talk about why we're doing certain things with the power. Is there a day that you want to do that?
The fifth day is probably best.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Yeah, looking at a schedule like this and going over this with you guys, it's making me think about how much the two payloads that I'm working on within the electrical team, how much we have to do before we launch. But we meet for like 4 hours a week in the middle of the week, and then we also do weekends, so we have a bit more time, I guess. Um, were you adding that in there also?
Yeah, hang on a second. My teacher's emailing me.
That's okay. All right. And I guess one of the other things that I know was talked about in the PDR a little bit is the plan with the marshmallows and like what type of container. If you did plan on using a container, you would put them in. Have you guys
Yeah.
thought about that at all? Or like found any type of container?
Well, how big about does it need to be?
That's a good question. How big is a marshmallow and is it going to expand at all?
Well, yeah, it'll probably expand.
But what if it's a sealed container? Do you want a sealed container?
Probably.
All right. Well, Andrew, Caleb, or Katie, would you guys be able to like look for a Tupperware container really quick? And like,
I can't go upstairs,
or
so
like not in person, like finding them on Amazon is actually going to be easiest for us.
I mean, we have so many Tupperware that
Are we putting them in the same Tupperware container? Or are we having two separate Tupperware containers? Because if we're having like little marshmallows, like I thought we talked about the Hershey marshmallows, they're gonna be like what, that big? So
Yeah, we probably don't want them to stick together.
because if they expand, then they're gonna
Then they'll just,
feel weird. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
so if we got one with like a little divide in the middle, hopefully.
Do they have those things at like hardware stores? You know what I'm talking about, where they have those little separators that you put in like these little containers to separate like nails and stuff. I don't know if they have one that small, but
It's a good question. I think you guys, I like that idea a lot. I think it might be good to just have two separate containers, and then you guys can also get a bigger container and try and, you know, put a divider in the middle. But yeah, guys. So the thing is, AXP, we have like money to purchase things for these payloads. So if you guys find something online that we can like purchase and get shipped to us, that'll make it easier on us for coordinating, making sure everything is here, and you guys don't have to like bother your parents for the clear Tupperware.
the only reason I really brought that up though is because I don't know if you have Tupperware small enough for a marshmallow.
That makes
Like if you really think about it, marshmallows are not that big. They really aren't. And if we don't want it to expand too much, then we probably don't want it to be that much bigger than the marshmallow itself, because then it'll just kind of move around the whole time. Which would probably not be super convenient. And I don't know too many people who want to super glue it to the bottom of a container. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If the Tupperware gets ruined by like gluing it to it, that is perfectly fine. It's just the question is that going to inflict on your experiment somehow? Yeah. All right.
Well, if we had it, if we could find some kind of container that would be like tight on two sides, but like it'd have room on the other two sides so that it could still expand if it wanted to. but like it can expand one way. It would hold it in place.
You know what they do have? You know, like those like tackle boxes, how they have those little like plastic separators? They sell like stuff for like jewelry on Amazon. So you can put like tiny little pieces of jewelry in them. So they might have something like that that'll work better. Because then we can move it around and it'll be smaller. Or you could just get like those little ring boxes and just take the ring out of it. I'm sure they probably have a clear one somewhere.
Do you guys want to like do a quick Google search and see if you can find anything?
Yeah, I'll look.
Yeah. No, it's the funding that we get through AXP. That's kind of what I focus on the AXP team more than anything else. And so, you know, we have throughout this entire school year, we've raised $20,000 for the projects we work on. Where it might seem like a lot, which it is, but with some of the projects we work on, just the registration for a project that the AXP kids are doing later in the year is $6,000. And so, but they're working on a payload that goes on a rocket, and then they're gonna send that into space, and I'm super excited to see them do that.
Yeah. I found these. I don't know if these are gonna be anywhere near big enough, but there's hang on, let me send it. There's a lot of different sizes and they're all pretty small. They're for jewelry, but yeah.
You want to just share your screen some?
Here, there's the link if you wanna.
Okay.
There's a bunch of different sizes. It's really small. It gets the biggest is 4.45 by 3.3 by 1.18.
So it sounds like that 1.18 is like our limiting dimension there. What's the size of a marshmallow again?
I'd say
You might. That's probably something you can Google, and I
think it's about 1 inch in diameter, but I don't.
Can you get confirmation of that online, someone? And I'm gonna run and grab marshmallows too.
Marshmallow dimension. Says there a 1 minute. Each marshmallow out of the bag is about 1 inch in diameter. That's not helpful.
Yeah, it seems my roommate ate all of the big marshmallows. We have like the little tiny marshmallows, but
What size marshmallow are we using? Are we using a giant one, a normal one, or a tiny one?
that's a good question. Tegan, I know you're saying things. I don't know if you're talking to yourself as you do.
Yeah, sorry, my friend just texted me. She's not sure if her parents are going to let her go back to school, but I'm 100% remote currently, so she better be able to go back to school. Otherwise, my decisions are pointless. So, not really important, but.
I think I heard you say something about the size of marshmallow you were planning on using earlier, Tegan. Did you have an idea on that?
Apparently at some point we said that we were marshmallows. I believe Andrew has somewhere in his house. Then we for it, if I remember, and apparently they're that's not helpful. Sorry, those are the heart-shaped ones because they had to do that to me. Sorry. I don't remember it, so I'm Googling it right now. And it's coming up with
Is
some more recipes and now. Yeah.
it my audio that's being slow in here?
No, it's mine is kind of cutting out too.
Okay. Tegan, I
It's
heard
probably-
some of that, but I think your internet.
Yeah. That seems very plausible, but at some point we talked about using Hershey marshmallows, but I don't remember the size, so I'm trying to Google it, but it keeps coming up with s'mores in the Hershey heart-shaped ones, which I'm pretty sure the ones we're not trying to use.
Yeah, I suppose if we can just decide on a marshmallow.
Yeah, it's not.
Alright. Let me share my screen so you guys can see just the ones that come up on Amazon. Do you guys see all of these so far?
Yeah.
So there's craft marshmallows here. Let me share my screen. The ones that come up on Amazon. You guys see all? I hear myself.
Average size
Yeah, I just heard an echo.
is about 2.54 centimeters or 1 inch.
Peeps, I'm a peeps. We can send a peep into space.
Totally off topic, totally not, well, semi-related. But there's a documentary on how peeps are made, and it is super cool. You should watch it.
I think I've seen that.
was
There's also a flat earther documentary.
Oh, jeez.
It was funny.
I was on the boardwalk at New Jersey, I think, and there was a bunch of people who were from the Flat Earth Society, and they had a little sign out there, and they were handing out like little pamphlets.
The documentary, they actually proved they bought a $20,000 what was it, a gyrometer, and they proved the Earth is round, and they're just like, that's interesting. Anyway, it's flat.
It's like, it's annoying though, because it's like, have you ever, like, if they're like literally at the boardwalk, like turn around, look at the ocean, it goes like this. It's not like, it's so annoying, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So like, is this the size of marshmallow you guys were thinking?
They look good. I mean,
I think the jumbo marshmallows would be more fun.
yeah, I like those.
All right. So I looked up jumbo. Any thoughts here?
The first one, the jet puffed ones are good. I mean, there's a lot of those, but it's just the first one that was there. They don't need to be super special.
Yeah, these look like the normal size. Is this one that you guys want? Because
Yeah, I mean, how big are those ones?
I think that's like the 2.5 centimeters or whatever Tegan was saying. I think that's this type, just like an
All right.
inch.
That's fine then, yeah. Hershey's.
Yeah. Did you guys ever find any like? I know Elsa, you found the jewelry boxes.
Yeah, because those ones are really small.
Yeah. Is that big enough? Then do you think? If it's
What side? There's 3.7 by 2.5 by 1. There's also 3.7 by 3.7 by 1.18. So I mean, maybe. But there's probably more. I'd say it
Yeah.
was 2.5 inches.
Centimeters. So like about an
Yes.
inch, I think.
Okay. So, like, is that how tall it is?
I think it's almost like like it's almost, if it was a cube, it'd be an inch cube, but then like one side is a cylinder.
Okay. So we want like. hmm, these ones are round.
Really?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah. So Andrew said, if you got the small marshmallows, they'd fit nicely. The bigger ones. Oh, that's interesting.
so there's that 2 by 1.5 inches.
Yeah. So that won't, well, yeah, that should be about the right size. But also one more thing to consider. I don't know if you've ever made s'mores in a microwave before, but you have to pause it every once in a while, open it up, and then squish it back down so it doesn't explode. What are we gonna do if the marshmallow just explodes?
It'll be data. I mean, we'll hope it'll hopefully not get on our sensors. I mean, that's what the containers are for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that the marshmallows, it will possibly like break the container. I think any container that we get is gonna be like robust enough.
Yeah.
Just we want to make sure that we're not losing data if it like gets too close to the edge. I don't know. That's that's up to you guys.
I don't think it'll be too much of a problem because if it has a lid, then won't it just expand and then it'll just kind of stick to the edges? So I guess we'll never really know if it explodes or not until it comes back.
Mhm.
Because it's gonna like hit the edges and then stick to it because marshmallows are sticky, which I feel like is spicy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and then on its way back down, it'll probably like sink to the bottom, so it'll be like this weird U shape.
So what do you guys think? We can buy like, I'll say like 2 different types of things. And then once you guys are in person, you guys can test them and decide what you actually want to have in your payloads.
Yeah.
If we end up finding ones that are made out of Pyrex, then we can just put them in or like glass or something. We can literally just put the marshmallow in there and then put it in the microwave and then see what happens.
Yeah.
But I don't have no idea how we're gonna test the plastic ones because you can't use fire because it'll just melt and that would be inconvenient. So.
Mhm. All right. Well, Andrew, I know you had your thought if you use more marshmallows, that one of the bigger containers would work better. Do you have anything you want to say with that? Anything more? No. Well, do you want to test that once we get in person, and then we can decide what works better? Working containers. Okay. All right. Well, are we set on this type of marshmallow still?
Yeah.
Okay. And what about the jars? Is like this jar?
Yeah, I've been looking. I can't really find anything else.
Okay. So let me see if I can find like a smaller. Batch, because this is a lot of them.
Maybe if we explode them, we'll have extras. With the power of the marshmallow.
Yeah, that's true. But that's a lot extra.
Yeah.
Just checking really quick. Or if not, let me just open this up again. I'll add that to cart. All right, and do you guys want like a type of this Tupperware or this smaller jewelry things that are rectangles?
Yeah, I've been looking. Most of the Tupperware that I found come in big like collections of them, like at least 30 or more.
Yeah.
Or they're really big. See, like that's the red one I saw, but
Like these? This would actually be kind of nice. You guys would have a lot of different sizes you could test.
yeah.
I also, at Hobby Lobby, I don't know if they still have them, but they used to have these little jars of buttons that are about the same size, I would assume. You would probably have to super glue the lid back on, but they're like $1 a piece, and you can, or like $2 a piece, and they're just full of buttons. So you could just dump the buttons out and get the jars or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I wonder if they would have those on Amazon. How do you like just button container? I know they're like at Hobby Lobby, but is this like
Or if we got smaller marshmallows, we could use those old foam canisters. You know, those like black ones with the plastic.
yeah, but if you guys want to see inside of it,
That, yeah. Oh,
it'd be good to have it
forgot
clear.
about that. Yeah, sorry.
No, you're all good. What about these?
Those look good.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different sizes.
Uh-huh.
So if one doesn't work, we'll have more.
So do you want these instead of these other circular ones we have? Because there's a lot of sizes here.
Yeah.
All right. Let me go ahead and remove this one. And I'll remove that one for now. All right. All right, so let me just go to card again. So for right now, we just have these two. We have the marshmallows and the set of 4 different types of containers. Is that good?
Yeah, that's probably good.
Okay. And the last thing, because I know we're gonna come back into the main room pretty soon. You guys had talked about having lights for the
Yeah.
camera, right? Any idea on what you want for that?
I know they have these little like tiny little 2-pronged lights that you can get for like coding activities and stuff like that, where you just
Like LEDs.
Yes.
and you can just tape them to like copper tape or something like that, and it'll work. I have one that I think still works, but I forgot where I put it. So
Yeah. You mean like? Oh, if I can get it out of here. You mean like these, right? Yeah. Hmm. So if you wanted, AXP could probably just find some lights like that to include, or you could be a little fancier and these strip lights, if you get some white ones, you can actually like kind of cut them and then like tape them on something and individually wire to them. Is that something that you guys want to do?
We'd probably get better lighting with the strip lights because those small lights can be kind of dim sometimes.
Hmm. And there can be like little diffusers on these as well, which can be nice. So maybe like white LED lights. Does this look good to you guys? Yes. Well, actually, it's gonna be easier to work with if they're 5 volts. And so let me just see if I can find one that's 5 volts. That's very small. 5 volts. All right. How does this look, you guys? Is this okay? All right. Yeah, I know it doesn't make that big of a difference choosing that or something else, but I will tell you from providing power to it, it's gonna make it easier. And if we want to have fun and accidentally blow some of the lights up, it's easier to blow these lights up than the other ones. I didn't say that though. I'm the one who wants to stay safe, right? You can do fun things. You just have to stay safe about them sometimes. I want to watch Passion of the Christ on my Angel TV. All right. Is there anything else that you guys can think of based off of the PDR comments that we got from the 2 times you guys presented? Anything that you want to change? I guess besides that, one final thing for your 3D printed stuff, any type of color that you want for that?
For the if we're gonna do the wedding cake thing, they, who said it that that the light will probably shine through the styrofoam a little bit?
Dr. Nero said that last time.
Yeah. Is there any way we can get it slightly transparent?
The filament slightly transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Uh. That's like, oh, you guys are gonna stress my brain by doing this. I'll get back to you guys on that, and after I look at some reviews. But like,
Okay.
besides that, like any other color you can think of that's like normal colors, you guys choose like the one thing that I'm like uncomfortable with in 3D printing. I like right now I have this like purple filament, this orange stuff which is like gone, and this white stuff which we're currently using. And we have a bunch of red coming and some black coming.
I like white, but I don't care that much.
Okay, absolutely. All right. Anything else you guys can think of?
No, not really.
Okay. And I'm sure there's things that we're forgetting, as there always is, but from looking at the schedule right now, I think it looks great. A lot of our stuff is pushed at the beginning, and those like last couple days we don't have a ton planned, which is good because ultimately we're probably going to run into problems and have to push things back, and having things arranged in a way that we can do that is going to make our payload successful. All right. Well, I think we're going to push back to break room really quickly. Yeah. Yeah, good work today. Are you guys excited for the in-person build days? Get to code and solder and 3D print?
Yeah.
All right. Well, they haven't closed them yet. Is there any other type of like experience that you guys want when it comes to the payload? Anything you want to try and learn? We should have coding with the Raspberry Pi that's C++, or not, with the Teensy, which is C++, and Raspberry Pi, which is going to be more Python.
Yeah.
And some soldering, some physical stuff, some 3D design. All right. Well, I guess I'll see you guys in the main breakout rooms then. Wait, Robert, do you have anything you can hold up that's 3D printed? Because of the three of us that have our cameras on right now, 2 of us are holding 3D printed things. Interesting. I don't know if that's 3D printed, but it's plastic, all right.
Probably made with computer, so.
All right. Well, John's walking down the hallway now.
It's fleeing.
All right. So just looking at the build day schedule, it seems like there's a lot of good information on there. And although some of the spacing looks a little weird now, it looks like you guys have a lot of really good plans for the build days. And I assume your budgets are much the same. All right. Anything that you guys want to say about schedule, budget, questions you have? Okay. Well, I think the last thing we had to cover today, I can bring it up here and get this ready and share my screen now. We had originally planned to have some public speaking kind of activities, but we kind of ran out of time, and the person leading those, I believe, is asleep right now, but that happens. So we just kind of have plans for next Saturday to let you guys know about. So next Saturday, we're going to be doing some presentations with the UNL's engineering ambassadors. And I know if you're from Gretna, at least, you should have heard that name before, but they've given you presentations, and they're going to help lead us through making presentations. And specifically, we're going to have presentations talking about Big Red Sat and kind of the overall goals, or at least a few people doing that, and then having a couple of people work on just other presentations, maybe for their payloads. But the neat thing about these presentations is they use a specific type of presentation. I believe it's called assertion evidence presentation. Is that right? Okay. But basically, you're going to have a sentence for a slide and then like a picture to go along with it. And it's going to be a lot of learning how to talk around the slide rather than just what's on the slide, which is a really useful skill. But we kind of have these pairings for people to work together. We have these pairings of people to work together next week, and you guys should, get some good presentations set up for next week. And for topics for presentations, like I was saying, the kind of just an overview of Big Red Satellite, which will also help tie into some of the fundraising we want to do. And then I believe we're going to have a Marshmallow Sat payload presentation, as well as a Sanic Sat presentation. But yeah. Michael and John, do you have anything to add here? I know MJ had a little bit better prepared what to say, and I'm kind of spacing on these slides.
I guess the only thing I'd say is that, I think there's some things linked in there. Is there that TED Talk linked in one of the slides about like self-confidence and power poses?
Yeah.
I would just say that that'd be a good thing to watch before next week. It shouldn't take too long, but it's a really helpful TED Talk about how shifting the position of your body can affect public speaking, which I think is useful for anyone in any level of public speaking.
Absolutely. Yeah, like even if you feel that you're not very confident in it, making yourself feel confident, even if you don't think you are, helps tremendously. Or like that whole, if you act like it tends to make you feel a little bit better, right? So that TED Talk is a good resource for that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to just copy this into the chat and have them watch that later?
I think you're going to have to, because it's too long for the time we have left.
Yeah, whenever I was your guys' age, they had us watch this video like twice, And then I joined speech in high school and they made us watch it again. And then I joined DECA in high school and they made us watch it another time. So this is not the last time you'll see this video, but it's a good first time to see the video. So
Yeah, there were, yeah, and the confidence, there were a few ideas, and I actually didn't get them sent to MJ, but a few ideas to share with you, which is, I don't know how many of you like speaking in front of an audience or feel very comfortable with it. No, Deegan's like, yeah. No, or you like it?
You debate, so yes, I do enjoy it. I don't, it's not a fear that I have, so it's kind of
Good. You're ahead of a lot of students, but and in fact, for one of my classes this week, it was speech week, and so I got to go to 6 extra hour and 15-minute classes and just spend them critiquing presentations. But part of that is, if you are uncomfortable being in front of an audience, one thing that can kind of reassure you is that when you hear somebody present, you actually want them to be interesting, right? You want to enjoy it. And so recognize that when you're presenting, people want you to succeed. And so even though you have these nerves and you're worried, do I look right? Do we do this or that? Know that the audience is coming from a positive place when they're interacting with you, right? And they want you to be successful. And most people are going to have some nerves, even if you like it, right? So Tegan, maybe if she does debate, probably there's a little bit of a high after you get done, right, with it. So use that adrenaline to actually channel it to help you be successful. And be aware that if you do your presentation really well, people are going to remember your presentation more than they're going to remember you. Right? They don't really want to be looking at you. So they don't want you to mess up. They want you to do a good job. They want to learn something, maybe be a little bit entertained. And the message is what's important, not you. So if you get comfortable, practice a little bit. Don't memorize the words exactly, because you're probably going to mess up if you do that, but just have the key points ready to go, and that will really help you out when you present. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all really good advice.
And and then the summary activity, which I think that was where, if you give somebody a big paragraph, have them be able to summarize it so they can actually present it without reading it. But I don't know that we have time for that one either.
No. That's an activity though that, like, if any of you are looking to improve your public speaking skills just with yourself, you can also do it. Also, another piece of advice that I learned from my speech days is that if you're unable to practice in front of an audience, recording yourself can be a really good trick, because something about just turning on that camera and knowing that you're going to have to watch it kind of simulates the feeling of having a live audience there. So if you're looking for some extra practice, just do that. Sorry, what were you going to say, Mikey?
I'm saying doing it in front of a mirror, as weird as that is, you can catch some of the kind of mannerisms that you might have, you might not even notice. But if you watch yourself do it, so same thing with the video. But the only reason I say mirror is because you can kind of react instantly and change something. Yeah. But I think a camera is a really good tool in helping with that awkwardness.
And then, yeah, I have one more thing to add. If any of you have trouble enunciating, something that they taught us in debate was if you put a straw or a pen in the back of your mouth and talk with it in there, it'll help you over enunciate the words that you're saying. So if you talk faster, then people can still understand every word that you're saying.
That's an interesting little trick.
Yeah, that's new to me. Thank you for sharing that.
Any other public speaking tips from anybody?
I would say have fun. A lot of what we may be doing is video, but an important thing is eye contact. So if you're doing a video, make sure that you've got the camera at the right height and stuff, so it feels like a conversation. You don't need to stare all the time, because when you're in conversation, you don't stare, constantly making eye contact, right? But make sure that you're not looking away or obviously looking elsewhere. But in person, the more comfortable I think you get when you first start presenting and you're uncomfortable, the eye contact feels like overload, and I think you tend to avoid it. Then the more comfortable you get, and the more eye contact that you use, then you actually crave it, because you are reading people and how they're responding and whether they seem to be paying attention or bored or whatever. And if you have watched any of these people, these like late night hosts or whatever, or comedians, they've talked about how hard it's been with the pandemic and having to present to a camera because they can't read their audience. And so do try and make that eye contact, hesitate for a minute, because if you want to make it feel like a conversation, making that eye contact draws your audience in, and they get more engaged because they feel like you're talking to them.
That's very true.
Well, I don't know if there is anything else to cover. Just make sure that I know we gave, or we showed the pairings for the teams. I forget exactly how we had divided up the teams of who was picking up which topic. But
So we were going to give people topics so they could find some images, right?
yeah, let me share this again. Yeah, so I believe we were going to ask the first 4 groups there. So Katie, Andy, Elsa, Caleb, Tegan, Gavin, Dylan, and Robert, to work on kind of the marketing presentation, fundraising presentation we had. So we had divided up some slides for you guys to work on.
You said the first 4 groups there.
Yeah. But we're expecting only 3 of you guys to want to do it. So is there 3 out of those 4 groups? Is there one group that doesn't want to work on that, would rather work on, a presentation about their payload? Yeah. All right. Because if not, we can work with, if all 8 of you guys want to work on that presentation, we should be good with that. All right. Well, we kind of had slides picked out for you guys to find pictures for, so we can, in just a second here, we'll create individual groups with each of you guys and send out just a couple of slides for you guys to find pictures for next time. And then the engineering ambassadors should lead us through kind of working on those presentations, how to give those presentations. And it should be a fun time with lots of learning. All right, it looks like Elsa has to go, but I guess we will see you all next week, and we will let you know on that list of what kind of the topic is there. And those other 2 groups, we will give you some options as well. All right. Well, we will see you guys next time.
Good day, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Have a good week.